Welcome to Volume 11 RockTalk Podcast, brought to you by Volume 11 Music. Your hosts, Rich Hoffa, Rick Lawhorn, and Mark Dunn. RockTalk, Volume 11 Music.
Hey, this is RockTalk at Volume 11 Music. I'm Rich.
Rick Lawhorn.
Mark Dunn.
And we're here. We're going to talk about stuff. We're going to talk about tone today. We're going to talk about guitar tones and different pickups, and then we're going to talk about players that use them and why things are different. And I think we were touching base with this earlier about how, players, of course, a little bit back then, of course, before all the digital age, had such a unique sound. They were chasing different sounds, and you'd hear something, you go, I know who that is. And I think that we all agree that the kind of digital age is kind of made everything kind of linear as far as different tones and things.
I would bet
like
a lot
that.
of those guys, the sounds that we love, though.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they try to get a good sound and tone, but I don't think they knew enough to chase a specific sound.
Yeah.
They were just doing
Everything
whatever
was
they
like,
did.
Yeah, because it was all about like, well, what's Clapton using? Well, he's using a Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Jimmy's using a Marshall now because Clapton used a Marshall. It's like nothing was really. It was all experimental.
Yeah.
It was benchmarking, but it was all experimental.
But that was the thing too. Like with Jimmy, I mean, that's his Marshall was not a Marshall. It was all
Parts.
so modified
Right.
from this guy out in California. And that's kind of what Paul Reed Smith did with his. They went and looked at that.
kind of
head,
built it, based
and then
that
they
off
built
the
it
Hendrix
based off of that.
thing,
So
yeah.
it's
And remember the early Marshalls was Jim Marshall kind of went after Vox
yeah.
and pissed Vox off, but the early Marshalls weren't even the same amp built next to one another because they were getting components catch as catch can. So there might be a transformer in this one that's a certain rating, and then the next one built right next to it. Like when they redesigned and reissued the Plexi, they got a bunch of Marshalls, vintage ones. Warren DeMartini had a mythological Marshall. They didn't get Eddie's, but Warren DeMartini's output was 140 watts.
Wow.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. So like there was so that's what I mean. Like it was a lot of luck.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, there's so much into tone, and I mean, one of the biggest things that we talk about single coils and double coils and that type of stuff, P90s or whatever, as far as the pickup's concerned. But one of the things that recently, when I opened the shop, was getting all these exotic picks. And
the exotic pick story.
I noticed you're down to like 2.5 million.
No, still have a lot of, but no, they sell, because it's. But you were trying them out.
I try picks
Yeah, they're
all
fun.
the time.
Yeah, and we were sitting there, and you picked up what was it? What when the chicken pick? It was the
tick pick.
no, it wasn't the tick pick.
The tick pick's cool.
It is.
The
I
tick
like the
pick's
tick
really
pick.
cool, but the one was made out of resin.
Oh, I don't remember.
It's,
yeah. It's but it's thicker.
Yeah, it's thicker.
Yeah.
But that one had a real mellow tone.
Yeah, it was cool. I wore them down though.
Oh,
On the
yeah.
acoustic, Not on the electric, but I wore them down the acoustic.
Yeah, so picks make a big difference. Of
Absolutely.
course, strings make a difference. We were dissecting strings and
That was fun.
nickel and nickel plated and the different tone qualities and things like that.
Frets, stainless steel frets, marginally sound different than nickel frets.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fully agree.
Well, it's like Rick, you bought the two Silver Skies, one in maple, one in
They have a different sound.
one
Oh,
in
100%.
rosewood, and they have the maple is pitchier.
Yeah.
The rosewood's a little mellower.
Kind
sounding.
of throaty on blues. I always think like a Stevie Ray kind of thing.
Yeah.
Blues type of sound.
Yeah, exactly.
And Stevie Ray is Freddie King,
Right.
who was playing a V.
Yeah.
But they sound almost-
Albert King and Freddie King. A lot of the three Kings.
Their
Yeah.
tone was almost identical.
Yeah. Well, it's like my dad was a big fan of Lonnie Mack.
Lonnie Mack. Yeah.
It's the humbucker, the flying V, and the Leslie with the
That rotating speaker. I believe
sphere.
That's some tone. Right
Stevie
there.
played through that too.
He did. I think Cold Shot. Didn't I think he was playing that on that one.
But
It's Scuttlebutt.
Scuttlebutt. Yeah.
But he had a unique tone. I mean, you knew who that was.
Right.
It's in his hands. There's a distinct difference, in my opinion, that sound and tone are not the same.
Right.
Yep.
So it's self-evident, and we can harken back to all the people that we love to listen to, but gear does not make you sound like how you sound. You make you sound like how you sound.
Right, sure.
So that's why Nugent said when he plugged into
Eddie's rig, I don't sound like Eddie Van Halen. That's a great story. I remember that one. Yeah.
But I mean, like I think a tone and the way an instrument or a band may sound, I correlate to like an audible aroma.
Yeah.
If it draws you in, it's because it sounds appealing or it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Well, yeah. I mean, the way you guys you attack the strings and how you guys just play different. I mean, you play the same stuff, you're going to sound different on it. It's the same thing with drummers. I mean, jumping on one set, one drummer is going to sound different than the other. Just how they're
they're attacking
the heads, and
I think a lot of that is too.
Like
even if we take lessons, we learned informally. But if you look at the classical arts, they're actually classical sciences. And because you have to bow a certain way, and you have to hold the finger on the frog, and so if not to disparage symphony players, but if you pulled two violin players out and play the same piece of music, they'd sound identical.
Yeah.
They're like Chet Atkins and Jimi Hendrix.
Me and Rick can both play Eruption.
Our touch is going to be different,
and it's going to sound different.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like penmanship,
Well, I agree 100%, and also like on that, say blues guitar players, you say, well, it's pentatonic scales. Everybody's playing, but they sound different. I mean, you can listen to Albert King, and that's going to sound different from B.B. King, and I mean, it's still
they got the same last name.
They got the same last name, but the notes are a little bit different. The phrasing is a little bit different.
The vibrato,
vibrato, definitely, that's a big part of it.
But I mean, there are guitar players that can play 1,000 notes a second, but I don't want to listen to them because if it's not, it's not even audible nutrition, like when I was saying on audible aroma, like it doesn't if that sound doesn't draw you in, and what I'm getting at here is you brought up B.B. King, one note with vibrato,
and it's B.B. King,
and why would a lot of younger guys or whoever would go, that guy sucks, I'm going to listen to Yngwie. Well, that's cool, and Yngwie's amazing, but that one thing that B.B. King does, only he gets.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And it's that sound, and it's about every aspect.
Yeah. Well, it's like we were talking about Chuck Berry yesterday. I mean, there's not a guitar player alive that hasn't. Of course, everyone.
Unless you're a classical player,
you're right. At least one Johnny B. Good lick, or something.
Everyone. I mean, everyone. And I mean, it's a damn shame that he didn't get a patent on a Chuck Berry.
Right. Oh, I know.
He should have gotten a copyright.
Everybody paying him royalties.
That's right.
But and then you're Rick. We talk about that all the time too. Just the differences in, we're going off into some other stuff, but just the hooks.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be intricate. I mean, if you can sit there and you get your head going, and you can, that's what I like to hear. I want to hear something really great. I mean, because there's certain songs that you listen to the radio down here, and this song comes on and it's full blast every time because it just gets you.
Well, even when we play in the clubs, and there's just certain songs that you go into, and everybody digs that song. It's simple and it's been played a million times. But when they hear down, 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 the dance floor is going to be packed, and they know that song.
Yeah, but that's against the law.
It is against the law.
Not to, if there's a certain level of redneckitude in different parts of the country. Well, and there's a statute down south.
Everywhere. It's not just down south. It's
I play a lot of gigs in Virginia.
I've driven up north, and I go, there's rednecks up here.
Definitely goes over good in Virginia.
That's right.
That's how you can always test the redneckitude in the room, is just to play the riff, and the response will let you know where you're at. Nothing wrong with redneckitude.
No, nothing wrong. Well, that one goes over great though.
Absolutely.
Well, who would let's see, who would be like your favorite as far as guitar tone, and who would be someone not so favorite as far as their guitar tone?
Oh man,
break it down because there's not one that's everything. I'm over here. I've got 5 or 6 answers for different.
I'm along the same ways. I mean, and it depends on the kind of music too.
Right,
is the other thing. for just, and I'm sure Mark will agree with me, a lot of this, going just straight up loud, driving rock and roll. We always talk about the old, the vintage Van Halen thing, that first album. Boy, what a game changer that was. Playing a Marshall amp, which other people use Marshalls, but Eddie's sound was different,
and
right?
Don Landy had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
But Eddie using the Variac.
The Variac, right.
Which was, an accident, how he figured that out.
Yeah, explain it to our listeners and viewers out there. What does that Variac do?
Oh, well, so he bought a Marshall but he didn't know that it was a European Marshall.
Yeah.
So he had it turned all the way up, and it sounded amazing, but it sounded like a whisper. Yeah. And then he looked on the back and saw that it was set up for 220.
It's different from here.
And so he went and got the Variac as a light dimmer, and so you can plug an appliance into it and change the voltage. So he had it down about 88.
Yeah. Now, was he the first to really do that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. I didn't know for sure, but
and also Jose never actually modified his amps.
So no modifications on the.
No, he just did that to try and help.
Yeah, I've heard so many rumors over the years. It's hard to know what to believe and what not to believe.
In the book, he talks about the Tone Chaser book. He mentioned that he paid him $10,000 to invest in an amp.
Okay.
That they were going to build an amp, and there evidently was a prototype, but no one can find it.
Wow.
Somebody has it.
Wow.
But and Jose passed away, and obviously, but he never messed with the Marshalls. So the Variac.
Yeah, that's the secret sauce there on that.
And for that van, probably up into fair warning.
Yeah, I was going to say, the first few out, 3 at least, I would say, right? Yep. Women and Children first, and Van Halen 2.
Yep.
So, as far as, again, of course, Eddie, obviously, very innovative, amazing player, but also that tone, just hitting an A power chord at the beginning of Eruption, that BAM!
On a pickup that was broken.
The broken pickup, right.
Yeah.
That was a wacky story. Never
That's true.
I believe
And
it.
Chip Ellis did those Frankenstein replicas that were
I remember those.
And I was reading the article and I'm like, I know where this is going. So no one even bothered to tell him because he did the same thing. He thought he'd broken the pickup.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
I'd just like to be that guy. I'm the guy that broke Eddie Van Halen's classic pickup.
I can't imagine. Imagine.
Well, that's like looking at the Angus. Have you watched the Angus Young rig rundown?
I have not seen. No.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible because they their whole philosophy is if it's not broken, don't just fix it. Don't overdo it.
I can hear
and they put stuff back together with bubble gum and anything they can, but it's all about wide open, just a SG and
what's amazing with Angus, and I love Angus, I love AC/DC. All the years they've been around, going back to the mid 70s, 76 high voltage, that's his deal. A Gibson SG, a Marshall amp.
Yeah.
Turn it up loud and rock out.
So the Back in Black album, probably their most popular, arguably.
Yeah.
So he used a wireless on that. And then that became known, and then I don't know the name of the company, but they made a pedal that emulated the tone of what the wireless did
going into the Marshall.
And damn if it didn't work. Like, I'm like, that shit, what? And my point is, it was probably a pretty cheap, a 80 wireless or something cheap.
Right.
And I was, 1980?
Yeah.
So with Angus's touch, everything affects the signal, though.
Yeah.
So he's in the control room with Mutt Lang with the wireless, and somebody made a thing that would alter the signal to compensate for what that wireless did.
Yeah.
You can, Google it. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, no.
There was an inexpensive one, and then there was like a $900 one. I'm like, that's just dumb.
Oh, yeah.
How Back in Black do you want to be?
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing with drums. I mean, drummers, they sound, especially back then, they sound so much different. I mean, John Bonham was the first drummer that had a really big
cannons,
booming sound. Yeah. And then everything was kind of the same. And I'll have to ditz on your Van Halen a little bit because, for me as a drummer, I never liked the tone of Alex's drum set. I always thought it was thin.
The best record's Carl Knowledge.
Yeah,
Andy Jones.
Yeah, that was a little meatier.
You're right. No, I agree with that.
Yeah, it was real thin. I mean, and a lot of it's got to do, of course, with he was playing a Ludwig's, and that was a more vintage sounding drum set.
You can hear the squeak on a Speed King and some stuff.
Yeah, and then I think the one that really was powerful was Motley Crue. think it was
Dr.
The Dr. Feelgood record had a big
That's
drum
Bob
sound.
Rock.
Bob Rock,
I
yeah.
mean, the drums. It was like
Cannons,
cannons. Like
Yeah.
I remember them talking about it. It was almost like they stuck the drum set down in a tunnel and mic'd everything. It's just just in your face coming at you. But I mean, the bass drum was unbelievable.
Yeah,
on
the
that.
compression on that and
Oh,
how
yeah.
hard they hit the tape.
Oh,
They
my
recorded
gosh.
that on tape, y'all.
Tape.
Yeah.
Tape.
Was pretty cool. That was
Yeah.
amazing. And that also was one of the, I know we're kind of going all over the place, but the volume of that
Yeah.
album
Oh, yeah.
was like the first one that was like, what?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
It hit hard.
Yeah.
It came
Well,
out
and,
loud.
and,
It did.
if you remember right, and of course,
I don't.
well, I don't remember right, but you pop in different tapes.
Oh,
We had
the
tapes
display
back
volume.
then.
Right.
The volume difference in the tapes, you could definitely. I mean, some of them you're sitting there going, "Okay, I got to
You gotta
crank
crank
it up,"
it,
and some of them you pop in and you turned it down because it was just.
It's the mastering ultimately.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, you could always tell a local recording because it was 5 dB quieter than anything
right.
on the radio or anything else
Yeah.
you put in there. But
That's it. So we'll talk more about tone in upcoming episodes. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and support your local stores and your local musicians. We're out here working for you, developing good content, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Rock talk.
And don't forget to send us some questions. We got to do some questions. So if you want to send a question, you can hit me up at rich@volume-11-music.com.
Rich at volume-11-music.
.com. And we'll put that on the screen too, so you guys can figure it out. But we'll talk to you next week. Have a great one.
This has been an episode of Volume 11 Rock Talk Podcast, brought to you by Volume 11 Music.